All eyes are on the International Court of Justice in The Hague this afternoon. The World Court is expected to deliver its judgment on South Africa's request to order Israel to stop military operations in Rafah. South Africa and Israel delivered oral arguments before the court in The Hague in the Netherlands a week ago. The judgment will follow the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, Karim, application for arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his Defence Minister Yoav Gallant, as well as 3 Hamas leaders for war crimes and crimes against humanity. SABC News correspondent in The Hague joins us live. Good afternoon, Alex. Thank you for joining us. In terms of what we can expect from the ICJ this afternoon, what are you keeping tabs on?
Well, certainly it'll be a big question of if the court feels that South Africa has presented a sufficient case to order the end of all military operations in Rafah. If that is the case, of course, it will be legally binding, and that will be that first question. Just under 2 hours' time, we will hear the president of the court delivering the judge's decision on this provisional order. Of course, this is an order that only applies until the court reaches a verdict on the broader case brought by South Africa when it comes to alleged breaches of the Genocide Convention by Israel and Israel's armed forces. Now, the Israeli government has been very clear. They say no force on earth will stop them from protecting their civilians, and they see the operation in Rafah as necessary to end those Hamas fighters, those Hamas brigades still in Rafah that took part in the atrocities of October 7th. And so they have described this case as the world being upside down because Israel, in their view, had been the victim on October 7th. Now, Israeli officials behind the scenes are also saying they expect the decision to go against them. They expect the court to order a ceasefire in the next few hours. We will have to wait and see for that confirmation, but that at least is what Israeli officials are expecting today.
What we do understand about the court is that all its rulings are final and binding, but we have seen instances where they have been ignored in the past. In terms of enforcement, then, is there anything that can be done?
Well, that will be one of the big questions. Crucially, the court has no enforcement action. You're right to say that the decisions of the court are legally binding, but it also ordered Russia to stop its invasion of Ukraine. That, of course, has not happened. Ukraine is still being pummeled by Russian forces. Now, the big question of enforcement comes down to the UN Security Council. That's where Russia vetoed any enforcement action, and that is where the United States could veto enforcement action, like sanctions, for example, or weapons embargoes against Israel. It will all depend on how harshly the Security Council wants to enforce this action, and if maybe, just maybe, the United States decides to abstain on some elements of that. We won't know exactly what the consequences will be until we have that decision by the court. When we have the specifics of how the court is viewing this decision, we can then turn our attention to the UN Security Council to see exactly what decision they will make. But we can certainly, almost all eyes will be on Washington after the decision.
You take in this decision that we're expecting this afternoon, as well as some of the announcements coming out of the International Criminal Court. What are you sensing here in terms of increased diplomatic pressure against Israel?
Well, this will be part of a much broader element of diplomatic pressure. We've seen another court here in The Hague, the International Criminal Court, requesting arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu, for Yoav Gallant, the Defence Minister, and for Ismail Haniyeh, Mohammed Deif, and Yahya Sinwar, the leaders of Hamas who coordinated the atrocities of October 7th. Now, those warrants have been issued, much to the fury of the Israeli government. That's one part of that diplomatic and political pressure. Another element, of course, comes from European Union countries. We've seen Ireland, Spain, and Norway in the last few days saying they will recognize Palestinian statehood in about 4 days' time. That is part of that broader diplomatic shift that we're seeing, and the ruling by the ICJ could be part of that in the next few hours.
Alex, thank you so much for your time. We'll catch up with you a little bit later on as we wait for that ICJ ruling.